Hello everyone and welcome to game 2 in this set. I don't know if it's a best of 3 officially or not, but it is a 3-game set. So we'll see what's going to be happening here as we now see TyLooJim spawning as the yellow Protoss player on the top left-hand side of the map. Meanwhile, on the bottom right-hand side, we see YJ or YoonYJ spawning here as the red Terran player. And if I am saying these Korean names with a Chinese pronunciation, I am sorry. I am Chinese. I am not Korean. So yeah, don't sue me on pronouncing Yoon versus Yon, Lo versus Lu. Anyways, as we can now see much more normal play now coming in from the Protoss player. Meanwhile, also pretty standard play coming in from YJ as the supply depot now being built on the front door. Now, Terran versus Protoss, according to some Korean sources, and I know I've mentioned this in the past, says that it really favors Terran play, especially the Terran 1-1-1 play. We see that YJ didn't use that 1-1-1 play last game, instead using that orbital command in order to get a very strong economy, even just off of one base. And how he was able to truly capitalize on that. We now see a probe making its way across the map. The probe perhaps is going to scout out this position first. Yes, it is going to scout out that position. Meanwhile, YJ sitting with the barracks over here, and SCV is going to be scouting out a 13 scouting SCV. It doesn't look like a refinery will be placed down, so it is going to be perhaps around a 17 command center. 17 command center maybe coming in as YoonYJ will be able to train up a Marine in just a moment. In comes the probe. The probe now making its way up. Where is this SCV going? It looks like the SCV will be coming across the south side as well, so both players will be scouting each other just a little bit later than normal. But the key question will be whether or not the front door will complete in time. And yes, the front door, which will deny any scouting information from the Protoss player, will be completed. So this one probe will not be able to sneak by. And we are already upgrading to an orbital command. We should be training up another SCV, building another command center either here or here, depending on what YJ really wants to do, as this SCV now makes its way up the ramp once more. You can see double assimilators now being placed down. So based upon this double assimilators, we can either have tech, we can have a 3-gate expansion, or sorry, a 1-gate expansion, or a 3-gate expansion attempt here on Shakuras Plateau with a lot of sentries. And we'll see if that really works out for him. As a stalker now being trained, it is not being chrono boosted. So if it's not being chrono boosted and there's a lot of energy on this one Nexus, it may in fact be a 4-gate push. So this is going to be really interesting. We need another pylon. The pylon is warping down over here, so very tucked away on the far side, away from the site of this one Zelnaga tower. And we'll see what exactly happens. There's a chrono boost onto that stalker now, a little bit late. Not quite sure why you're going to chrono boost a stalker if you want to start chrono boosting out that warp gate. We'll see how many other gateways will be placed down in just a moment, as we are once again going into a proxy Stargate. The Marine, however, gonna spot this once more, and YJ will not stand for any cheese. I guess that Marine, for some reason, not going to be moving back over here, as a stalker now coming in across the center. The stalker is taking a little bit more damage than he wants to take, now being forced to pull back. The range, the superior range on that stalker, however, the stalker is taking some critical damage now, as Marines are still trying to find their proper position. It looks like there's nothing on the front door, so a little bit of a dangerous gambit here by leaving that front door completely vulnerable. There are 4 Marines down here, a 5th Marine now coming in, as the stalkers are now making their way forward. Are the stalkers gonna, yeah, the Marines are now gonna focus down onto the stalker, gonna perhaps finish off this pylon. Pylon needs one more shot to get finished. Not quite sure what's happening here. Instead, going after another stalker here. That stalker now taking a lot of damage, and both stalkers in the red, as this pylon now gets destroyed, and all the units will desperately try to return home. Stalkers are getting a little bit of damage, poking off those units, using that superior range once more. The stalkers are regenerating energy, shields on those stalkers. The stalker shields are regenerating, excuse me, as those Marines are now trying to back off. They will be able to do so. Upgrading to an orbital command has been completed. This is going to be 3 racks with a reactor as well. A tech lab should be starting that research on that stim pack in just a moment. Going for concussive shell first, as we are now double training up Marauders to deal with the large number of stalkers so far that we've seen from TyLooJim. Now we are getting a Nexus here. The pylon is in position. You can see what robotics facility and a warp gates already on the field as well. An observer should be coming in or coming online in just a moment, as we now see YJ establishing his own natural expansion already with an orbital command, but no factory, meaning no starport, meaning no medevac. So those Marines and those Marauders who are currently low on hit points will not be able to do all too much. Now, currently, Marines are being doubly trained off the reactor here. And over here, Tech Lab, we are researching Stimpack. Combat Shield could be coming online as well. As we are now going into another refinery. Apparently, there was a little bit of a lag as the units are once again moving out across the field. SCVs just mining away as we are now going into a robotics bay. Robotics bay, most likely gonna be for Colossi. I would be absolutely surprised if it wasn't for Colossi, as those Colossi will be able to melt through this infantry army, especially with no factory, with no air support. Without the Vikings, it's going to be very, very difficult to shut down those Colossi, but without medevacs, these Marines and these Marauders are not going to be able to deal the damage that is truly necessary at this stage. One observer already making its way across to here, one poor Marine being the sacrificial lamb, walking up the ramp. The Marines and the Marauders now going to try to make their way up. Enough sentries to hold this off here, as we are also going into the Stargate. So we may get Void Rays, we may get Colossi, just really, really branching out into terms of different tech. One Marauder is stuck on the wrong side of the tracks. Now that one Zealot able to retreat back once more, as we can see a Colossus is being chrono boosted out. Stargate may get a chrono boosted unit as well as soon as there is enough resources, but the units are simply just trying to walk up that ramp, truly unable to do so at this point. More units still trying to push their way up onto that high ground. YJ trying to get sight and figuring out what is happening over here. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to see all too much. A much larger army on the ground, but unable to charge up. Actually, it's not that. It's actually fairly close. If you took a look at total resources, about 300 resource difference, as the Marines and the Marauders able to finally push up. But a Colossus joining in on the fight is going to finish off all these Marines. That Colossus, however, getting focused down. And Marauders over here getting destroyed as well. Multiple force fields, as YJ simply almost just walked into that trap there, losing a lot of sentries though. And I believe that Colossus, if it was in a better position and those Marines and those Marauders were shut down, would have been able to destroy a lot more. 13, taking a look at total resources, 1,500 versus now 1,800, as there are so many sentries, Phoenix, and another Colossus coming online that we may have a counter push coming in from Jim in just a moment. You can see that there are three gateways with, three gateways with three more on the way, a Stargate and also a robotics facility. Perhaps the Phoenixes can be able to graviton beam siege tanks, or they're also there to perhaps soak up damage from those Vikings. The Vikings generally want to focus down onto those Phoenixes, but as long as YJ focus fires onto the Colossi, he will be able to come out a little bit ahead. Not quite sure why there was a ping on the map there. There was an observer now trying to find the proper positioning. The missile turret does spot this, and now he's going to try to back off. It looks like he will be able to pull away in just a moment. The observer essentially dealing a lot of damage to all those Marines, but then using a stim pack in order to counter that. We can see that there is an observer in position over here in order to intercept this medevac, but will it be able to react in time is the other key question. There are, 3 Phoenixes, 2 Colossi. The Colossi will not be able to traverse this ramp, though, as it is a double cliff, or traverse this cliff as it is a double cliff, and Colossi cannot go up and down double cliffs at all. That observer not going to spotting the medevac now, going to start dropping into play. It looks like the damage is going to be had. The Phoenixes now making their way off over here. The Marines and Marauders simply stimming their way over. The probes are trying to engage. The medevac already dealing damage onto that one particular low hit point. And now, there we go. This is going to be a bit of a problem as the medevac taking a lot of damage. The medevac down to 22 hit points, and all these units essentially in trouble, as the Phoenix should be able to perhaps strand those units. The Colossus now trying to push in once more, and now another drop happening over here. YJ Now picking up the rest of his units. Are the Phoenixes going to make their way over? That is another key thing, but it doesn't look like it, as YoonYJ establishing up his third base at the 13-minute mark. We can see the Vikings are already in the air. 5 Vikings will be dealing damage or battling out with the rest of those. With the rest of these units here, Vikings now making their way off. You can see there are a couple Marauders and a lifted up factory. Not quite sure what that's about. The Vikings going to try to engage, and now the Phoenixes are going to perhaps engage over here as the Colossi, and now Marauders trying to push their way in. The Vikings are focusing down those Colossi, but the Phoenixes may be able to finish off all the Vikings before any more damage is dealt. The Nexus was sniped, but this is a very, very expensive trade coming in from YoonYJ. Also, Jim now graviton beaming those Marauders, so those Marauders are all just going to get finished and destroyed, and now a very impressive army lead by Jim. But will Jim attack at this key moment that he really needs to attack right now? Shut down this orbital command in order to make sure that it's 2 bases versus 2 bases. But the Marauders are now pushing pressure in on both sides at the same time, including the main base once more. You can see now a very large army making their way in. SCVs being transferred. This one refinery was spotted down over here. With the missile turret going after those Phoenixes. With the Marauder drop still dealing a little bit too much damage in both locations. But now it's just going to be a really large army coming in from Jim in order to try to shut it down. It looks as though the orbital command going to soak up a lot more damage from those Phoenixes. Vikings now making their way over. The Phoenixes need to focus this down. Colossus now running straight into the Viking. Marauders and Marines all up on the high ground. As the Vikings are still trying to finish off the rest of those Colossi, it looks as though the orbital command in trouble here, as the sentries are able to place down so many force fields and the extended thermal lance ranges dealing so much damage against all of these massively grouped together units. Colossi could be backing off in just a moment. They are taking a bit of damage there. So, once again, getting back up onto that high ground. Mass Marines still finishing this off. There's a meta back here, but that's no problem. More units reinforcing over here as well, as the Colossi finishing down much of the bases, and now it looks like this Colossus will be destroyed as well. Zealots now trying to take down this expansion here. It looks like all the SCVs were destroyed. 59 worker kills compared to 32, 35 harvesters compared to 11. Not a state that any player wants to be in after so much has happened. Another Zealot has been destroyed. Mass mules now being called back in. 5 mules to give him a very strong economic boost. You can see that that number is going to jump back up into the 1,000 range as SCVs are mining back over here as well. There is, I believe, Zealots now returning back home. There is 1 Phoenix, 1 Colossus. Army combinations much, much better for Jim. But there are also a lot of low hit point units coming in over here. The Marauders and the Marines. It looks like the Phoenix is going to take down that Viking rather quickly. There it goes. It looks like this expansion down over here will get destroyed. More Marines are going to be trying to make their way in. Stalkers backing off the Colossus using that extended thermal lance. Able to get so much damage in. Mules will get destroyed. Zealot's going to engage once more. And I believe that Jim is going to be able to take this victory. He has such a nice lead right now. And now those Marines who are so low on hit points trying to run away from those Zealots, as a second Colossus now being added to the group. Phoenix now finally backing off, and it looks like this main army rallied into the wrong location will get destroyed. SCVs not quite sure where they're going. Mules just doing a bit of scouting now, as this orbital command will get shut down. And now continuing to make their way up the ramp, shutting down Marines, slicing them as they go. And while it looks like Jim, with a very, very impressive force inside the main base, will be able to finish off anything that's truly happening over here. The Phoenix now trying to shut down this last Viking. Stalkers on the ground, finishing off the Vikings in the air. The Phoenix absorbed a lot of damage, as the Marines are now doing perhaps a bit of a counter push. Is there enough of an army here in order to stop this? Is the other key question. A lot of Marines, probes now being transferred over. There's a lot of sentries, a lot of force fields could be coming into play. And it looks like it may become a base race, as YoonYJ going to lose his starting base. You can see barracks, starports, and more barracks being floated off to the far side. And now a high elevator drop into the main base may be coming in just a moment. But the Colossi able to come in, start slicing at some of those units once more. Finish them off. Stalkers now being warped in right behind. as all of these main tech buildings and the upgrade buildings will be destroyed as well. 107 food versus 23. Things are not looking good as these SCVs are now establishing another base on the top right-hand side of the map. All of these units are going to be trying to land. I can't imagine them doing anything else right now, as there is the GG. So YoonYJ losing game 2 in what I now know to be a best of 3 series. Stay tuned for game 3 and the deciding match between these two great players. A lot of action early on. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.